Hey YouTubes, Jordan here, but before I get to my comic reviews for this week, need to do a little bit of house cleaning. First off, you may have noticed there was no video last week, and I'm sorry about that. I'm a law school student, and law school just started up full-time last week, and also went a bit into the weekend. I'm recording this video on the weekend, and hopefully I'll be recording over the weekends in the future, but I just had no time last week. So, here's what I'm going to do. The week of comics that I didn't review yet, I'm only reviewing 3 books. However, for the week that just came out, I spent a lot of money on comics because just about everything I read seems to come out on that week. So, I'm going to do the 3 comics from 2 weeks ago, and let's say half the comics from this week in this video, and next week I'll post the other half, plus the 3 comics I know I'll be getting next week, so we'll spread everything out. But with that said, let's get on to the reviews. For the week of August 19th, 2009, we had not 1, not 2, but 3 comics featuring Spider-Man. So what better way to start things off than The Amazing Spider-Man, issue 603. Now you might recall that in the last issue, the Chameleon kidnapped Peter Parker, dropped him into a vat of acid, yeah, right, and then took his place. This issue, we focus almost exclusively on fake Peter Parker. And fake Peter Parker is interesting. Let's just say if there's ever been a moment in Spider-Man comics where you're like, come on, Pete, just do this. The Chameleon does that. Yeah. Interesting results. And by the end of the issue, we find out kind of how Peter survived his ordeal. But I guess we'll find out more about that in the next issue. Overall, this arc is okay, and I think I'm going to like it later on when I can read it all in one shot. However, I don't know how well it's working in floppies, but still a good story. And I like this version of the Chameleon, so very cool. Next up, we have Dark Reign, Mr. Negative, issue 3 of 3. This was a solid conclusion to a solid series. If you've had any interest in Mr. Negative from reading The Amazing Spider-Man, very good book to check out. It gives you a nice view of some of the underworld villains of the Marvel Universe that you don't often get to see, like The Spot, for instance, and also shows us, as many comics are doing, I will say this right now, a lot of comics are doing this, but it's always nice to see those little hints that Norman Osborn's demise and the return of the Green Goblin is inching ever closer. And as much as I like Dark Reign, I cannot wait for the aftermath that is sure to come from Dark Reign, so good stuff. And finally, for last week, we have Deadpool, Suicide Kings, issue 5 of 5. This is another really solid mini. I suggest you pick it up. In this issue, Deadpool, Spider-Man, the Punisher, and Daredevil all team up to take down Tombstone, and it is an awesome takedown. And you know how sometimes Deadpool will completely hallucinate what's going on? Let me just say that this was not one of those times. Overall, really good mini, although I must say, the last page, the conclusion, for anyone who's read it, have we ever seen that happen to Deadpool in the past? Because I don't think I've ever seen it. And if you love Deadpool, you'll be happy to know that Marvel is releasing yet another ongoing Deadpool series. That's 3, if you're keeping count. I've been making the symbol 3 a lot today, because I've seen Inglourious Bastards twice, so, 3. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, Marvel is putting out Deadpool Team Up. I think it starts with issue 899, so that's a good jumping on point for all you new readers. If this is any indication of how awesome that is going to be, I cannot wait. So that's it for the comics that I read on August 19th, 2009, and here are the first half of the comics I read on August 26th, 2009. So here's how I'm going to split this up. Coming up right now are the 5 miniseries I bought this week. Next week I'll touch on the 5 ongoing series I bought this week. And we'll start with Dark X-Men, The Beginning, issue 3 of 3. This is a surprisingly strong ending to a series which is essentially just a bunch of vignettes all in the same theme of how Norman Osborn got the different Dark X-Men to work with him. All in all, it was a solid enough series, but it was just a, if you really want to know what the Dark X-Men are up to, you'd read the Utopia crossover. And this is really just for the people who want to know why they're there. It's solid enough, but if you're not an X-Men reader or don't care about Utopia and all that stuff, which ended this week anyway, no real reason to pick it up. And next up we have Timestorm, 2009-2099, issue 4 of 4. Overall, my reaction to this entire miniseries was a resounding meh. It was okay, I guess, if you like 2099, which I happen to. Surprisingly enough, the best issue of the 6 that came out, because there was also a Spider-Man one-shot and a X-Men one-shot, um, was the X-Men one, I thought, and it was also the one I was most reluctant to buy, because if there's one 2099 series I'm least familiar with, from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever, it was the X-Men one, but it was actually quite good. Um, this is really only for hardcore 2099 fans, though. It's alright. That's all I can say for it. Next up, we have 2 penultimate issues, and we'll start with the Skrull Kill Krew, issue 4 of 5. This issue was fine, nothing standout. I'm really hoping that the final issue of the series will tie everything together quite nicely, and I think this is one of those ones that's going to read better in trade. I don't know. It's good. It's okay, but I want it to be great because I really liked their appearances in Avengers: The Initiative, and I want them to live up to the awesomeness that was in that book. Maybe I'm asking too much, but like I said, hopefully issue 5 ties everything together quite well. And then we have Dark Reign, the Sinister Spider-Man, issue 3 of 4. This is actually a very solid series. I've quite enjoyed it. Kind of slapsticky, but if you like Spider-Man at all, or Venom at all, granted this is the new Venom, but it's really is a fun read. I've had a good time reading every issue, so check it out. And then finally, this week, we have Batman, the Widening Gyre, issue 1 of 6. I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan. I'm overweight and from New Jersey. I don't really have much of a choice. So it's not really much of a surprise that what I'm pretty sure is the first DC floppy I've ever reviewed on here will be written by Kevin Smith. And this issue was actually a nice introduction to someone who doesn't really know DC, because we start years ago when it's Batman and Robin, kind of a, the old TV show Batman and Robin-ish. I mean, they look like their comic counterparts, but the attitude is very, holy smokes, Batman. And then we jump forward to the modern day, or at least a modern day where Bruce Wayne is still alive. As far as I know, he's still dead in DC Universe, maybe? Not 100% sure on that. But, so, everything you need to know is kind of explained for you in those first few pages. And most of the villains are old school movie villains, so if you've seen any of the Batman movies, you should have a good idea of what's going on. And Smith introduces us to a new character, this book. We don't have a name yet, but he seems to be some kind of hero for the Catholic Church. He has holy water, cool mask, that kind of stuff, so it'll be interesting to see where they take him in the future books. I'm not Catholic, but it's still interesting. And I must say that Mr. Walt Flanagan's art, who I actually met him a little over 2 years ago up at Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash in Red Bank, his art has improved quite a bit in this series. He did Batman Cacophony with Smith 6 months ago or so, maybe last summer. And the art wasn't bad, but you can tell he's really settled into a nice groove with this first issue. So keep up the good work, gentlemen, and I'll see everyone next week with the rest of this week's comics and next week's. See ya.